Spider-Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi, is often considered a marvel of its time by the Spider-Man fanbase. This is because the film does a good job of humanizing the super strong, web-slinging superhero that we all know and love. He sure struggles just like the rest of us, attending classes on time, working two jobs to pay rent, and maintaining a social life, just being a few of them. When it comes down to it, Peter is just like the rest of us in his mind. So, it would be safe to assume that we can explain the loss of his powers in the movie with the psychological reasoning that we have today. The symptoms that Peter exhibits in the movie point towards his condition being brought on by a type of somatoform disorder commonly known today as conversion disorder. MedlinePlus.gov defines conversion disorder as a mental condition in which a person has blindness, paralysis, or other nervous system symptoms that cannot be explained by medical evaluation. Peter's temporary loss of powers could fall under this, and as seen in the film, Peter's doctor states that he thinks the problem is up here. He then hints that stress could be a main component to Peter's dilemma. He is likely experiencing what psychologists refer to as cognitive dissonance. Explorations in cognitive dissonance by Brehm and Cohen describes a dissonant relationship as being two opposing elements someone possesses that clash. In Peter's case, this would be living as Peter Parker, passing his classes, showing up to work on time, and being with Mary Jane, versus living as Spider-Man and being a hero because, after all, with great power comes great responsibility. According to cognitive dissonance theory, these two would be placing a great deal of stress on our protagonist, which will only go away once he chooses between the two. We even have a visual of Peter making his decision in the film, which is a conversation between him and his Uncle Ben where he decides, "I'm just Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man, no more." There was a study in 2015 that compared conversion disorder patients, depressed patients, and normal healthy individuals as a control group together, and they found that a large stressor was very common prior to conversion disorder patients showing symptoms. In Peter's case, his stressor may be a combination of his professor threatening to fail him, seeing Mary Jane get engaged to another man, and being unable to pay his rent. Previous generations of the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders required that a large stressor be present before symptoms to diagnose someone with conversion disorder, but in the DSM-5 it was removed. Now, in order to properly give an unprofessional diagnosis, we must list the requirements from the DSM-5 and determine if Peter fits the bill. First off, the person must exhibit one or more symptoms of altered voluntary motor or sensory function. Peter first begins losing his ability to shoot webs and eventually loses his superhuman strength as well. The second requirement is that clinical findings provide evidence of incompatibility between the symptom and recognized neurological or medical conditions, and the third requirement is the symptom or deficit is not better explained by another medical or mental disorder. We saw this when Peter's doctor couldn't find anything wrong with him and simply stated that it might just be in his head. Lastly, the symptom or deficit causes clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning or warrants medical evaluation. Peter obviously can't fight crime the way he used to if his powers don't function, and it obviously scared him enough to warrant a checkup with the doctor. Now that it is safe to assume that Peter is diagnosable with conversion disorder, let's try to figure out why his powers return to him. There isn't much research that has a surefire cure to this disorder. Some people need to go through physical therapy and work with medication, while others must simply realize that there is nothing physically wrong with them. An article in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology told of an elderly woman who had gone mute with conversion disorder due to her stressful workplace. They argued that her voice would return to her if the stressor that had caused it to retreat was removed. Similarly, if Peter's powers began to disappear over the stress of losing the love of his life because he has his powers, it would be safe to assume that they might fully return when that same woman is put in danger, and the powers are the only way to save her. Conversion disorder is only one of many theories that could be used to explain why Peter went through his humanizing journey in the events of Spider-Man 2, and ultimately, it is up to us, the audience, to believe what we choose. Spider-Man is supposed to appeal to us because he is more than just a superhero. He is one of us. He goes through the simple struggles of life, and that's why he will always be a fan favorite.
Pizza time.